I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and today I'm thrilled to be talking to actor and executive producer of Apple Cider Vinegar, Kaitlyn Dever. And starting off, I mean, this is such a nuanced role to try and approach and figure out how to play. And I've heard you say that you really centered in on the idea that this is someone who had this real need and want for love and community, and that you found that to be a driving force behind a lot of the actions that she makes throughout the series. And I was interested in how, when you first read the scripts, that really helped you to uncover that and how that became really central to figuring out how to play someone like Belle.
Yeah, it's so good to be here, by the way. Thank you for having me. I, yeah, this so good. As soon as I read them, and after I read the scripts, I actually went down sort of a Belle Gibson rabbit hole on Google and was looking at all of the things she did, and I think yes, it would be very easy to paint her as sort of this like very evil person, and obviously I was infuriated by what she did, and it was truly horrible, the things that she did and what she lied about and how many lives that affected. But I think that what Sam Strauss did so beautifully in the show is yeah, get to the core of why she lied and what what makes someone lie about that. And it was really sort of an exploration of the human condition, and just um yeah, really studying like what her background was like, what her childhood and her upbringing like. And yeah, she was someone that didn't get the love that she really wanted when she was growing up, and I think that that's what ultimately drove her to um, lie about having I think it was just, she had always been sort of her entire life attaching herself to certain groups and sort of molding herself to, she's almost like in a lot of ways, a lot like an actor, I would say. I thought of her as sort of like when I was going through prep, I really thought of her as an actress in many ways, just her ability to sort of um, change her tone of voice and her energy around different people to sort of get what wanted. And um, yeah, I think, but at the core of it all, a cry for help in many ways, and um, yeah, sort of a need for love, and she was sort of desperate for that connection and community, and she never had that growing up. So it was really fascinating to sort of dive into that part of her. But yeah, obviously, what she did was so infuriating and just kind of mind blowing to me. She was able to get to do that and also get away with it for
I also feel like with what you were describing there about Belle being someone who really adjusts and alters herself, and the way that Sam Strauss, the showrunner, has written the scripts on this series, is capturing that essence of someone who's also not completely knowable because they do these things. And I was interested in, with what you were describing about going down that rabbit hole of research and watching some of the footage of her, how you approached looking at the way she was presenting herself, but also knowing that there were all these other sides to really find your own interpretation.
Right. Well, that's, I think, because of her sort of online presence and the very few interviews that we've seen of her online, um, I felt like if I were just to focus on that, it would be very limited and not as nuanced as I think that she is in real life. But I also know that, like, I don't think we'll ever really know who the real Belle is at the end of the day. I think we've seen so many different versions of her. Um, but I mean, creating that from the ground up was really just a collaboration with Sam Strauss, the writer. She was so sort of supportive and really allowing me to feel like I had that sort of creative liberty and that freedom, but it really was like such a collaboration with her, and deciding what those levels were and where they would go, and how she is, how she is with her mom versus how she is with her partner Clive, and how she is when she's like at her book launch and has a microphone in front of her. You know, there's just different, there's so many different parts of her that I wanted to sort of land. I definitely did use that iconic pink turtleneck um, interview as the baseline. And obviously, when we ended up shooting that scene, I did want to give you know, many nods to the actual, like the real interview, just because I could not, you know, apply all that lip gloss and a lot of pressed powder. But no, I used, you know, there, because there aren't many like videos of her online. I think I also got like one of I think the interview she ended up doing with Penguin that we ended up you see it in the show, like in some of the later episodes, but just where they're sort of going back and asking her all sorts of questions about her life. I got to see that video. That's not on the internet anywhere, but they had access to it, and so that was really interesting to sort of see her in a more like, okay, this is definitely a more relaxed Belle. She's with her people, but you could see just the tables turning in her eyes. You could just see the sort of, I guess, the calculations happening in real time. And I wanted to sort of take the essence of that into the character, and into all of the different scenes. But it was a lot to keep track of too. She's just um, chaotic in many ways, just because she is sort of all over the place when it comes to her personality.
And you've also captured so much in terms of the nuance, in terms of the mannerisms, and even the tone of her voice sometimes has more of a lightness and a breathiness in your delivery, and sometimes it's more deeper tones when she's kind of feeling more attacked and kind of going for people a bit more. And I was interested in some of the adjustments that you constantly found in terms of just mannerisms and the body language and the way that you were using your voice very differently in a lot of scenes and situations.
Yeah, I don't do this a lot, but I think for this job in particular, it definitely required a spreadsheet. I did a spreadsheet when I did Dope Sick, and these shows are similar in that we were kind of jumping all over in time, and we were definitely shooting out of order for both of the shows. And so I was like, oh, that was really helpful for Dope Sick when I did that. And so uh, I I needed my sister to sort of help me build it on Google Docs. She definitely helped me create the entire thing. I would separate them into episodes, and then as each day went on, I would sort of like cross out you know, a certain scene. I would make notes about like what year it was, you know, because she's also very different throughout, you know, between 2010 and 2015. And yeah, I just really wanted to keep track of that, because it is so, you know, 2010 is so different from 2014 for Belle, and where she's at in her career and how successful she became. And um there was also a teeth switch with her. So I had bad teeth at one point, and then, you know, I was sort of swapping out this like fake set of teeth a lot in the show, which was super fun. Again, I just felt like I what it was such a thrill for me as an actor to get to do it, because it just, I really didn't feel like myself at all. Um, but yeah, and then aside from, you know, trying to track where she is throughout the years, and where she is in her journey and her career, and her um just where she's at mentally and emotionally, I also wanted to sort of, yeah, track when, you know, she's with Clive, and when she's trying to manipulate a situation, that's a different Belle. When she's with her mom, I think it's a more like stripped down, sort of almost defeated Belle. And then, but also trying to like stand up for herself, and then there's, you know, the Belle that is trying to seduce someone, and um, you know, turning it on for a crowd. Like there's, she's very, and she's also like a very charming person. There's something we would say a lot between, you know, our discussions with the director Jeffrey and Sam, is that, you know, had she not lied about having cancer, she was just a wellness blogger, and created that, you know, she would have been very good at it. She had really good taste. The aesthetic was really beautiful, especially for that time. And um, you know, but obviously she lied about many things along the way. So, but yeah, if I think that she was also quite, um, you know, good at what she did too, just between the app and the cookbook and um, all of that. But yeah, she's so many parts of her to sort of nail down. But I was really so excited for the challenge again, because, you know, and aside from all of that, like doing the accent was like a whole other like level of oh my God, I'm freaking out. I'm freaking out. I don't want to mess this up. I just was every single day, especially the first few weeks of filming, I was like, oh God, I have like I can hear when I'm doing, you know, I could hear moments when I was doing like saying a wrong, like, or a word wrong, or I could really hear all of the flaws when I was speaking. So that was like a challenge. But then also just, you know, I had to really just like trust myself, and trust the work that I did with this brilliant dialect coach, Jenny Kent. Just it's a real yeah, I just really had to trust myself in so many ways on this job and hope for the best. But I really didn't want to get that accent wrong. That was another big part of the character work too.
And I wanted to ask you a bit about working with Jenny Kent on all of the dialect as well, because
Yeah.
I know that you were kind of very judiciously together, going scene by scene every time you would film everything, really looking at if the sounds matched, if you needed to work on the vowels of something. And I've heard you describe how with the dialect that you found it really helpful to think about it in terms of musicality and just the different tones and the different notes of things. And I was interested in how that perception and that approach, along with going scene by scene, really, really helped to nail it down for you.
Yeah, I mean, Jenny Kent was just such an angel on earth. I really don't know how I would have done this job without her. I wouldn't have been able to. Um, yeah, she was with me every single day. After every single take, I would run to her and I knew she was listening to my like every single word that I said. I would even like some of the days she couldn't be on set, and I would like call her and send her voice memos, and she was always there over text. Like I relied on her in such a big way, and I really wouldn't have been able to do this job at all without her. Um, but yeah, you know, from the beginning, you know, Zoom sessions, because we started Zooming before, like 3 months before we started filming. Um, and I remember, you know, those first sessions being like, oh my God, I don't even know if my mouth can like do this. I don't know. I can't, like no was the first. So like O's were like so tricky to, and then your body sort of starts to, I don't know, get used to it. It's just all of a sudden I could tap into it in a different way. But it was sort of, I think, just a lot of repetition, a lot of sessions with her. And yeah, I think because I have a bit of a music ear, I can hear all the details, and I can, yeah, I think that definitely made learning this accent helpful just because, or I guess it made it a little bit easier just because I was able to really hear when something was wrong, and then also just be super specific about the sounds. And um, I also can, I feel like, you know, Jenny would say a word and I could just like repeat it back at her. And um, I was really paying attention. I was able to really pay attention to the sound of the accent. And then it's also, yeah, it's about the sound and then also the way it feels in your mouth. It's like a totally different placement than my natural accent. Um, so I was definitely tapping into something I've never done before. And um, it was really what a cool exercise. I just feel so lucky. And I remember my mom actually read the scripts and she was just like she thought it was so cool. I mean, she loved the story just in general and um but like specifically the accent. She just thought it was so cool that they wanted me to, you know, play this person when I've never done an Australian accent. Or I mean, I've done British before. No, I don't think I've never done British for like a movie or a TV. I've done British for auditions before, but like I've never even touched an Australian accent for anything. So, and I think that's also, I did recognize at the time, like how much of just, that's just a very rare thing for an American actor to get to do that. So I just feel like really, really, really lucky. So lucky.
And you did such a phenomenal job with it as well. And also in talking about some of the tone of the show, it kind of sets the premise right in the opening scenes of what this show is going to be, and it's going to lean into some of the darker sides, but it's also going to have the moments where it leans into the absurdity and some of those aspects of the story. And so one of the scenes in particular I wanted to ask about was the scene where Belle Gibson ends up reciting the lyrics to Raw almost as if she's reading a profound poem, and then breaks into song, because I think you captured such an interesting tone in that scene, and also the very real cringe factor of what it is, because it's not being received as she perceived it would be. And I was interested in what it was like to go into filming a scene like that.
Okay, well, yeah, talk about cringe. Wow. It was when you were asking me the question, I was actually thinking about the just the story behind the roar sequence and how it actually happened. And it actually did start, that scene had a more like profound like poem that I recited. And I do wonder if it had always been roar, if it would have been, you know, I was just thinking about how I would just because there was something about her reciting a poem that felt very like she's still very earnest throughout the whole show, really, and especially when it comes to like stuff involving her book and the app and everything. And but yeah, when it was scripted one way up until like maybe less than 2 weeks before we actually shot that scene. And Sam was like, "Hey, you sing, right?" And I was like, yes, what's happening?" And she's like, "I really think it would be amazing if she sang Roar by Katy Perry instead. Would you be down for that?" And I was like, "Oh my God, that is so," yeah, I just remember thinking like that's gonna be so cringy, especially because like it did really feel like actually cringy in the moment because I don't think like all of those actors a part of that whole scene and in the audience, you know, I don't think they knew what was coming. So I just started singing and I think we were catching some of their genuine reactions in the um I think we actually did that. We started on we didn't start on me, I don't think. We started on like the audience members. Um and I think we're definitely catching some of their true and real reactions to me just all of a sudden belting this song in front of everybody. I also like doing that kind of thing, like doing any sort of speech for me personally is really nerve-wracking. Like I had to give a speech at my best friend's wedding, and that kind of thing just like terrifies me because I think there's nothing for me to hide behind. There's no character for me like hide behind, really. It's just like me and my words. And with this too, it did feel a little bit like that, like, oh, this is a lot of people and I don't want to, mess this up in front of all these people. And but I also knew that like, I really, if this is going to land, if I want the absurdity to land, I really just had to like, just let it all go. And, I, I, I did just like, let it rip. Um, So it was definitely, there's a lot of parts of Belle too that, and I guess specifically Belle's storyline that has a lot of so much sadness, so much drama, but then there is also like, I really did want to like allow for that sort of those cringe and absurd moments to sort of lean comedic and lean a little bit funny. And I think, when you see the show, it's like, oh yeah, everything else is like really sad and heartbreaking. And then like, there's moments when Belle comes in, it's a bit like you're a little jostled, like what's happening. And I'm really glad that like Sam was so game for that. She really understood those different nuances and where they should land, and Sam herself is just so funny, and she wrote like a really complex woman, and I was so excited that she was game for all of that to come through.
One of the other aspects of the show I wanted to ask about a little bit was Belle's relationship with Miller, because you and Alicia don't really have that many scenes together throughout the show, and yet we get this constant feeling of the presence that it has in Belle's mind. This is someone that she kind of views as, oh, look, she has it so much easier. She's able to build community more easily and connect to people in a way that I really struggle with. And there's that kind of question of, does she want to be her almost? And I thought you captured that really well with the fact that it's not about the two of you being in scenes. And so I was really interested in how you found the path through that aspect of Belle's story.
Yeah, I think that Mila is definitely like um the sort of almost like Belle's like religion in a lot of ways. I think Mila is obviously, like you said, they don't have very many scenes together. And it's interesting to see these two parallel storylines happening in the show. And for I think for Belle, yeah, that was something I definitely thought about a lot, in doing all of the other scenes when I'm like looking at photos of her, looking at her Instagram, is that you can never really tell if she like wants to like just, yeah, she's obsessed with her. You can't tell if she wants to be be her best friend. And I think that playing with that and going in and out of that, like I guess questioning that was something that was most fascinating to me. But yeah, I think that they're at the end of the day, I think that Mila, um, I think Belle is very heartbroken by Mila, and that sort of like drives Belle forward, um, and sort of lights a fire under her belt in a lot of ways. And that I guess in speaking about those two characters specifically, but um, yeah, that those I definitely did want to play with that, just like, okay, she's definitely obsessed with her, but does she want to like take her down? Does she want to be her? Just, I was really fascinated by that, and I thought that landed very well in the scripts too. So I just kind of wanted to like bring that to life in the best way possible. But even in those, that last episode where she comes in as sort of this like imaginary figure, I was so excited about that sequence in the ringworm. And yeah, the tone of this show is so wild too. I was just thinking about how wild the tone is.
I think especially with that last episode, because it's just this constant building tension for Belle, and the fact that she inserts herself in this funeral that nobody wants her at just naturally builds a lot of antagonistic elements. And you kind of can't tell what direction she's heading in. And there's that whole conversation where she's asking about, well, have you thought about what you're going to do with Miller's followers, to Miller's partner?
Yeah.
And I was wanting to ask about just how you went into that last episode, because I think it really pushes you into a lot of extremes in terms of how you're playing Belle, but she still feels like a very real person at the center of the way that you're approaching it.
Well, yeah, I think the way I wanted to approach it, because in playing someone like this, you kind of have to find where the empathy, where the empathy is, and I didn't want to just view her, even though what she did was so horrible, and it was so infuriating to me to sort of discover all of these things that she lied about throughout prepping for this role. And it just was really infuriating to me, given how like personal this story was for me too. It's like, whoa, I followed a lot of women like her when my mom was going through cancer treatment, and my mom followed both conventional and non-conventional um, therapies and different accounts that supported both. And so to find out about what she did was so yeah, it would be very easy to call her an evil person. But I knew that in taking on this role, I had to ground myself in some sort of um, empathy. And I think in that last episode, so she's just really like, she's finally cracking open. And I think this is in a very raw place, but still like clinging for like dear life onto anything, like anything she can. And so like even in that scene where she's talking about how you're going to take care of Milla's followers, like that scene in particular, I felt like really sad for her, and I felt that deep sadness. And I think there was a line in particular where um, he says, "Oh well, you know, oh she talked about you a lot. I've heard about you. She talked about you a lot." And the way that just like her face lit up for those 2 seconds, I really wanted that to land, because again, I think that speaks to the whole journey and where she's come from and how far she's come with this lie. And I think again, it speaks to the core of why she lied, which is she's just like really craving that love and community, and that kind of love that she didn't get as a child. And 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 obviously that turns like in the next few lines after that, but just having those moments breathe. The funeral scene where she breaks down crying, that's actually something that like really happened. And it was written about, like people commented who were actually at the funeral. That was a real thing she did. And yeah, just allowing, that episode is really just when she starts to break down. And I I had to, yeah, I think I just had to go to the place of, knowing that all she wanted was love, and that she also really wanted to be a good mother. I think that was also something that Sam really wanted to um, sort of highlight and protect, I think, with our version of Belle, is that she really wanted to give the life that she never had to her son. And I think that also shows in the last episode too. But Yeah, that episode was like really, really heavy. I remember again because a lot of it was just we had one director for the entire um series, and we did episode 6 like sporadically. So I just had to really, again, that's why the spreadsheet was so helpful in those moments.
We also meet her at this point in the story where the lie has become so big and so extreme, but you also get this sense of obviously it didn't start with the larger version of the lie. It was incremental to get to that point. And, it's kind of at this point where when everything closes in on her, she still can't actually bring herself to say the words, I never had cancer. I don't have cancer. And she still clings to it because she's so embedded in it that it kind of feels like it is a fabric of truth to her at that point. And I thought it was so interesting to look at that at the end point of the story alongside, seeing that touch point of what you were just describing about her relationship with her son. Because again, it shows the very different sides of her. And I was interested in how you and Samantha Strauss talked about that kind of end point for her, because it's not suddenly an absolution or a resolution in any way.
No, no, it isn't. And we did talk a lot about that, and specifically like that interview where she says, I really, like, she asked her if she has cancer, and she says, I really hope not, which is so loaded, those it is so loaded, and it's not, there isn't any yeah, it's not solidified at all. And I think that that does just describe just her journey in the last, like, I guess because it started and she started doing this in 2010, and it was, a 5-year long lie. And I think to speak on what you said in your question, like, I think it was something that started off sort of like as you know something she was testing out on this little blog, and then all of a sudden I think it just was a tumbleweed effect. And I think she just got so caught up in it that I think it started to almost like, to me at times I thought she may have like brainwashed herself in those moments, and I think that shows through in the pink turtleneck scene with Tara Brown. Like, I think part of me did kind of wonder, and I think I wanted to leave that open for myself and for playing the character, like, because I don't even think she really knows. I don't know. I think she at her core she knows she didn't have cancer, but I think that, yeah, like you said, it had gotten, the lie had become so big and almost out of her control. I mean, not really. I mean, she had every ability to sort of, you know, confess at any point. But I think that she was so caught up in it, and she was so desperate, so desperate, that she would have done anything to get what she wanted. And then she finally got all these things that she wanted. And I think that at a certain point, maybe she did start to believe that she was sick in some sort of way. And we do play with that a little bit in episode 4, where she goes and sees that integrative doctor who did tell her she was sick. And there was a world in which she just went with what this doctor, who kind of ran no tests on her really, but did some sort of test. And I think that to her, that was her truth in many ways. But again, I think I sort of was leaving that open for myself as the actor playing her, because I think it was all over the place for her too. And I think that's what me and Sam landed on, was just how it had, yeah, it was just so, it was all so so much to handle at a certain point. Um but I think she definitely knows at her core, but also she can't, she, at that point, she is so far gone at that point to even say the words that she didn't have cancer.
Yeah, and I think you really captured just the complexities and how complicated this whole story became. And it was an incredible performance. So thank you so much, Kaitlyn. I really appreciate you talking about it.
Oh, thank you. It's been, yeah, I love talking about this show. I love everyone involved, and I did genuinely love playing this character. It was such a huge privilege as an actor to get to play this person and be a part of this show. So awesome.